Welcome back to Joy News Prime. To the rest of our stories. Parliament Thursday voted by majority decision to reject a motion to absorb the fees of students in tertiary institutions. The motion, moved by NDC MP for Boko Central, wanted the president to waive the fees for all tertiary institutions students for this academic year as part of a coronavirus relief package. Before bringing you how the House voted on the matter, I will bring you some of the debates that preceded it. MP for Ofuasia Yorubi and Minister Designate for Information, Kojo Nkrumah, started a debate for the NPP majority and kicked against the motion, which he described as unclear and bordering on illegality.
So, Mr. Speaker, in terms of being clear and specific, my humble opinion is that this motion doesn't meet the test. In terms of legality, even asking a president to suspend the implementation of LI, I think 2216, is a matter that, in my humble view, flies in the face of legality. In terms of not being discriminatory, this motion, as it stands currently, discriminates against students of private tertiary institutions. And in terms of best practice, Mr. Speaker, as I've mentioned earlier, things like fiscal impact analysis, etc., are not included as it stands. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, it is a good thing that we all acknowledge now, despite the earlier comments, that it was populist, it was a cheap approach. It's a good thing that we all acknowledge now that reliefs for Ghanaians should be done at a time like this. And I encourage my colleague to keep on this path. I'm happy we're on this path. But, Mr. Speaker, this motion as it stands, to the extent that it appears to say, because we have voted some monies for COVID-19, it should be able to cover all of these things. One, we know those monies were for specific purposes. And B, Mr. Speaker, because in my mind, these basic pillars that must be met as a test are not met, myself and I believe a good number of my colleagues will not be able to support this motion as it currently stands.
MP for North Tongu, OKUDZETO, ABLAKWA, however, strongly disagreed. According to the former Deputy Education Minister, it's very important for government to support families and students in such difficult times occasioned by the coronavirus pandemic.
Mr. Speaker, the NPP manifesto acknowledges the times we are in and made some good, what I would call far-reaching and positive proposals. I recall the MDC manifesto as well talked about the chamber policy, which was even later revised, that all the free SHS graduates would not pay fees at all. So what the Honorable Mahama Yariga is asking for are matters that the two main political parties brought to the fore during the campaign. The various standard bearers spoke to them, and students were in anticipation that because of these hard times caused by COVID, when the 2020 and 2021 academic year commences, whether it's NPP or NDC in power, we will all make do our promises and we will deliver on those promises. So what has changed? Is it the case that we don't want to keep faith with the electorate, with the Ghanaian people? So this argument of discrimination, let my brother Honorable Kojo Nkrumah take note that free SHS does not cover private schools. So does it mean President Akufo-Addo is discriminating against students in the private schools? So you are shooting your own policies in the foot. Then they claim that we cannot support private institutions. We have been doing it. As Deputy Minister of Education in charge of tertiary education, I recall that in the allocation of vehicles, anytime we buy buses for schools, we include the private tertiary institutions. We do extend support to them. So we have been doing that. We sometimes extend even grants when we negotiate with the World Bank, and there are some grants available for faculty. We allow them to also apply. So there's a long-standing tradition where we extend support to private tertiary institutions. These things are done. So the Honorable Mahama Yariga must be commended for bringing this motion. Is competent as the Speaker has ruled, and this House should not be said by our constituents that we sat aloof, we ran away from our campaign promises, and when the time came for us to stand up for them and to seek their interests, we chickened out and engaged in bad faith.
Minority Leader HARUNA IDDRISU then called on the NPP side in Parliament to support the motion as it was in the interest of Ghanaian students and parents.
First of all, let me respond to the Honorable Kojo Nkrumah when he sought to give an indication that this side of the House was not supportive of government effort in matters relating to the management of COVID. And Mr. Speaker, I refer you to the Hansard of Friday, 17th April 2020, on the approval of the Rapid Credit Facility Agreement between Government of Ghana and IMF to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And Mr. Speaker, in particular, to refer you to column 221 of column 194. And Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I quote, "At that time, I had opportunity to lead this group. I still have the privilege to do same." Mr. Speaker, I said, and I quote, "Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the motion for the adoption of the report for the equivalent of 738 million SDR, which is about 1 billion for Ghana, to mitigate the financial and economic impact of COVID-19. And the IMF is reported to be providing disbursement to many or several African countries." Mr. Speaker, and I said, I speak in support of the adoption of the report on behalf of this group. So why create this erroneous and misleading impression? Not just this. I've also heard the Honorable Kojo Nkrumah sought to argue, referencing Public Financial Management Act. Mr. Speaker, we are in Ghana. We're in this House when we passed the Custom Amendment Act on over-age vehicles and those salvage vehicles. The government of President Nana Addo Dankwa suspended the operation of the law. Where did you do that? Where did you have authority to do that?
Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markins contended the NDC was on a path to obstruct and ambush government and questioned if Ghanaians are ready to shoulder more taxes to implement an exercise he described as costly.
If indeed the intent of my colleague is to bring to the attention of this House this matter as urgent and as important as he deems it, which I agree with him, he should come by way of statement. This is the appropriate channel to advance this cause. Then we would be engaging. What he is doing, Mr. Speaker, is exactly what Mr. Speaker admonishes us not to do. Carrying out an obstructionist agenda, trying to ambush government, because the appropriate route is to come up with a statement. If you come out with a statement, we engage each other because, Mr. Speaker, the explanatory submission by him talks about the fact that he is not restricting government. He is encouraging government to take the opportunity to sit with the implementers. These were his words. The implementers. And then he also talks about the fact that there's going to be a fiscal cost, a fiscal impact, which, Mr. Speaker, my colleague Kojo Nkrumah advanced that argument in extenso.
Education Minister-designate Dr. Yao Educhum has, however, revealed vice-chancellors of the country's universities do not consider as urgent the need for government to absorb fees for students in public tertiary institutions at this time.
It's interesting when colleagues stand up and say we need to support our children. But, Mr. Speaker, at the face of it, you will say, yeah, there's COVID-19. But Mr. Speaker, I have spoken with a number of vice-chancellors who are telling me they don't know what is going on in this house. I'll study Accra. In 2018-19, 67% of the students that they admitted registered.
At the end of the debates, the House voted to defeat the motion.
Is tomorrow acceptable to members? Now, I put the question. At the conclusion of the debate, the question is, as many as in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. As many as are against the motion, say no. No. I think the noes have it. The noes have it. Honorable members, the motion is accordingly negated.